Welcome to part 4, which is also the last part, where we learn the basics of shading. Now, there are two different types of shading you can do, which I'll show you right here with these blobs. Now, there is Airbrush Shading, which is very smooth and gradual like that. This is very good for realism. However, if you want a more cartoony look, there is cell shading, which is hard layers, so you can tell the line between the base color and the shading. For this video, we're going to be doing this one, the cell shading. So without further ado, let's begin. I like to put the shading on a layer above the base colors, just so it doesn't interfere. And I like to set the opacity of the entire layer a bit low, just because it is shading. You don't want it to be like that, or else the natural colors that you put down for the layer before don't show up. Now, the specific opacity you want is definitely not set in stone, so just play around with things, see what effect you like from it, and go from there. The main thing to keep in mind with shading is you want to locate a light source. And because, of course, if you look in real life, shadows are where light is not. So we'll put the light source right up here. So light is beaming down like that. And this is the area you don't want shadows to be. This is the areas you do want shadows. And you just go from there. Kind of get a feel for how things should look and just make it look natural. You want the shadows to kind of fit with the shapes to give it like added sense of perspective, such as the nose kind of rolls down that way, so you want the shadows to make it look like it's like that. And this gives it a 3D look, and the effects look really good. So I'll just do messy shading because hair is messy. And it's kind of the same principle as your base colors. Don't be afraid to go outside the line and erase the extra fluff that you don't need. Just like what I'm doing. And shading is probably the hardest part of doing art, other than getting the proportions down. Since you can play around a lot with colors, you don't have to shade with the same base colors that you use. I would recommend not shading with white or black. Do a darker or a lighter version of your base colors, or any colors on the color wheel, really. And just do that. I'm shading the cheek a little to make that pop. And if you don't like the way something looks, don't be afraid to erase something and try again. Art is just practice, experimenting, seeing what looks good, what doesn't. Can do the cheek shading better, so we'll do that. And then once I get done with the basic shading, I'll show you what the effect has of shading with different kinds of colors. And yeah, let's get this cleaned up. And not perfect, but you get the idea. It goes from this to this and gives it a more complete look. I won't erase that. So let's do the highlights. This isn't necessary, but it does help to make your art pop even more. You can shade with or highlight with whatever color you want. Honestly, same as with shading. I'm going to go ahead and do kind of a muted version of orange right here. Show it better that way. I don't want it to overwhelm, but I do want to give it a kind of pop. Now, it's not going to be an exact orange color. It's going to take on the blue of the base color if your opacity is low. And you don't want it overwhelming. You want it kind of subtle, just enough to give it that extra pop that it needs. And it definitely takes a lot of practice to figure out where you want the shading and where you want the highlighting to be, but once you do figure it out, man, your art's going to pop and stand out and look really good. Normally, like I have been saying, my drawings look a lot neater than this, but this just gives you an idea of how to do this. I am highlighting the shadow parts because of this concept of reflective light, where light shines from the light source, comes down and it bounces back towards the shadow area. And that also helps to give your art a little bit of a realistic look as well. And I think that's it. So, what do you think? If you like these series, we do art streams every Friday where you can watch me work on art. That concludes this art tutorial. I will erase this to make it look better since those aren't necessary. But that's it. That's all there is to the basics of art. Everybody does things differently, so if you find a method that works for you that I don't do, then that's great. This is simply showing you how I do things. But hope you enjoyed this video and keep drawing.